Mike Lee got ready for his big job interview on Monday morning. He spent a long time picking out his best blue suit and making sure his black shoes were clean and shiny. This was his third try to meet with Big Star Marketing Company. The first two times, they called him at the last minute to cancel the meeting. In his small bathroom, Mike fixed his tie and looked at himself one more time in the mirror. He was 32 years old and had worked in marketing for 5 years. He was really good at his job. He helped many businesses make more money through smart advertising. He had even won awards for his work. Mike knew he would be perfect for the job of marketing team leader. Mike got to the Big Star building very early. It was a tall glass building in the city center. Many people in suits and work clothes were rushing inside. Mike walked up to the front desk, where Sally, a friendly-looking woman, was working on her computer. "Hi, I'm Mike Lee. I have a 9 o'clock meeting with Bob White," Mike said with a smile. Sally's friendly look changed when she saw Mike. She quickly made a phone call, speaking very quietly. After she finished, she looked at Mike with an awkward smile. "I'm sorry, Mr. Lee, but Mr. White had to leave for something important. You'll have to call our HR team to set up another meeting," she said. Mike tried to stay calm and professional. As he walked toward the exit, he heard two workers talking by the water machine. One said that Bob White was actually in his office, interviewing someone else right now. Mike held his black folder tight but kept walking. He wasn't stupid. This wasn't just bad luck. Something wasn't right, and he was going to find out what was really going on. Mike didn't go home right away. Instead, he went to Jenny's coffee shop, where his best friend Lisa worked as a lawyer. Lisa had helped many people with work problems before. The coffee shop was quiet at this time, with only a few people sitting at the small round tables. "They did it again," Mike said, sitting down with his coffee. "Third time, they've canceled on me." Lisa put down her phone and looked worried. "Tell me exactly what happened," she said. Mike told her everything, about the canceled meetings, and how he heard Bob White was actually interviewing someone else. While he was talking, he checked his email on his phone. There was a new message from Big Star's HR team. "Look at this," Mike said, showing Lisa the email. "They say they're looking for someone who fits better with their team. What does that even mean? I have more experience than most people who apply there." Lisa's face got serious. "Mike, I've seen this before. When companies say better fit, sometimes they're trying to hide that they're treating people unfairly because of how they look or where they're from. Did you know they hired someone last week?" Mike nodded. "Yeah, my friend Tom works in their IT department. He told me they hired a fresh college graduate, Tim Parker, for a similar role. He has 0 experience in marketing." Lisa took out her notebook and started writing things down. "Okay, this is important. We need to save all these emails. We need to write down everything that happened, with dates and times. We also need to find out more about who they're hiring." Mike felt a mix of anger and sadness. "I just wanted a fair chance," he said quietly. "I didn't think I'd have to deal with this in 2024. "Listen," Lisa said, reaching across the table to pat his hand. "You're not alone in this, and sometimes the best way to fight back isn't by getting angry. It's by being smart about it. I have an idea, but you need to trust me." Mike looked at his friend, seeing the determined look in her eyes. He knew Lisa was planning something, and for the first time that day, he felt a little bit of hope. The next day, Lisa came to Mike's small apartment with a big folder full of papers. She spread them out on his kitchen table, while Mike made coffee for both of them. The morning sun came through the window, lighting up all the documents Lisa had brought. "Here's what I found out," Lisa said, pointing to some papers. "In the last 2 years, Big Star Marketing has hired 28 new people. Want to guess something interesting? 26 of them look exactly like Bob White. Only 2 people from different backgrounds got jobs there, and they both work in the mailroom." Mike sat down heavily in his chair. "So, what you're saying is—" "They're not hiring people fairly," Lisa finished his sentence. "And we can prove it. Tom from IT helped us too. He sent me the hiring records, and look at this. Many people with amazing experience got rejected for weird reasons." Lisa pulled out more papers. There were at least 10 job applications from people like Mike, people from different backgrounds who had great experience but never got the job. All their rejection emails had the same words: looking for a better fit. "But here's where it gets really interesting," Lisa said, her eyes lighting up. She showed Mike a newspaper article. 3 years ago, another company got in big trouble for doing the same thing. They had to pay a lot of money to the people they treated unfairly. and they had to change how they hire people. Mike read through some of the papers, his coffee getting cold. "So what's your plan?" he asked. Lisa smiled. "First, we're going to write a very special letter to Big Star's big boss, the CEO, Mr. James Wilson. He might not even know what Bob White is doing. Sometimes the top people don't know what's happening below them." "And then?" Mike asked. "Then," Lisa said, pulling out her laptop, "we're going to contact these other people who got rejected. Tom found their information for us. If we all work together, Big Star will have to listen. But here's the smart part. We're not going to be angry or cause trouble. We're going to be professional and use the law to help us." Mike nodded slowly, starting to understand the plan. "So, instead of just fighting for my job, we're going to fix the whole system," Lisa said. "Make it fair for everyone who comes after you too." Just then, Mike's phone buzzed. It was an email from Big Star Marketing. His hands shook a little as he opened it. "They want me to come in tomorrow," he said, looking surprised. "Bob White's boss, Sarah Chen, wants to meet with me personally." Lisa leaned back in her chair with a knowing smile. "Perfect. This is exactly what we needed. But before you go to that meeting, there's something else you need to see." Lisa pulled out her phone and showed Mike a social media post. It was from Tim Parker, the new guy who got hired instead of Mike. In the post, Tim was smiling with Bob White at a golf club. The caption read, "Great day golfing with Uncle Bob. Thanks for the amazing job opportunity." "You're kidding me," Mike said, his eyes wide. "So Bob White gave the job to his own nephew?" "That's not all," Lisa said. She clicked on more photos. "Look at these posts from the last 6 months. Bob White and Tim's dad are best friends. They go on vacation together. Their families have Sunday dinners together. Bob White never gave you a fair chance because he was saving the job for his friend's son." Mike felt his face getting hot. "So it wasn't just about how I look. He was planning to give the job to Tim all along?" "Exactly," Lisa smiled. "And this is even better for us. Not only was Bob White unfair about race, but he also broke company rules about hiring family friends. Most big companies have strict rules against this." Just then, Tom from IT sent a message to Mike's phone. "Look at this," Tom wrote. "Sarah Chen, Bob's boss, is really mad. She just found out about Tim being Bob's nephew. She's been checking all of Bob's hiring decisions from the past year." Mike and Lisa spent the next few hours preparing for tomorrow's meeting. Lisa helped Mike organize all the evidence, the canceled interviews, the emails, the social media posts, and the hiring records Tom had shared. "Remember," Lisa said as she packed up her things, "when you meet Sarah tomorrow, stay calm and professional. Show her everything we found. She seems like someone who wants to fix things." That night, Mike could hardly sleep. He kept thinking about all the other people who might have been treated unfairly. But he also felt stronger now. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting to make things right for everyone. Early the next morning, Mike got another text from Tom. "Sarah called an emergency meeting with the company lawyers. Bob White looks really worried. Good luck today." Mike put on his blue suit again and checked himself in the mirror. This time, he wasn't just going for a job interview. He was going to help change how things worked at Big Star Marketing. As he grabbed his folder full of evidence, his phone buzzed with an encouraging message from Lisa. "You've got this. Remember, the truth is on your side." Mike walked into Big Star Marketing's building at exactly 10 a.m. This time, everything felt different. The same receptionist, Sally, looked nervous when she saw him. She quickly made a phone call, but instead of giving him bad news, she said, "Ms. Chen will see you right away. Please take the elevator to the 15th floor." The elevator ride felt long. Mike held his folder tight, remembering everything Lisa told him. When the doors opened, he saw a large office with glass walls. Through the glass, he could see Bob White sitting in a chair, looking worried and sweaty. Next to him was Tim Parker, his nephew, staring at the floor. A tall woman in a black suit walked up to Mike. "Mr. Lee, I'm Sarah Chen. Thank you for coming." Her voice was firm but kind. She led Mike to a big conference room where 2 other people sat, a man in a suit who looked like a lawyer, and a woman who had HR Director on her name tag. "Mr. Lee," Sarah started, "I want to apologize for what you've been through. We've spent all morning looking into this situation." She paused and looked straight at Mike. "But I have a feeling you already know quite a bit about what's been happening here." Mike took a deep breath and opened his folder. "Yes, Ms. Chen, I've discovered some things that I think you should see." He started laying out the documents one by one. First, he showed his 3 canceled interviews, then, the hiring records Tom had shared. Finally, he pulled out the social media posts showing Bob White with his nephew Tim. The HR director gasped when she saw the golf club photo. The lawyer wrote something in his notebook. Sarah Chen's face got more serious with each piece of evidence. "There's more," Mike said quietly. He showed them the statistics Lisa had gathered. "In the past 2 years, your company has hired 28 people. Only 2 were from diverse backgrounds, and they were given the lowest level jobs. Many qualified people like me were turned away with the same excuse, that we weren't a good fit." Sarah Chen stood up and walked to the window. She was quiet for a long moment. "Mr. Lee, how did you gather all this information?" "I had help," Mike said honestly. "My friend Lisa is a lawyer who handles workplace fairness cases, and I have to tell you, she's already prepared to file a formal complaint. But," Mike paused, remembering Lisa's advice, "that's not what I want." Sarah turned back to face him. "What do you want, Mr. Lee?" "I want real change," Mike said. "I want Big Star Marketing to be a place where everyone gets a fair chance, where hiring is based on what people can do, not who they know or what they look like. I want to help make that happen." Just then, there was a knock at the door. Bob White walked in, his face red. "Sarah, you can't seriously be listening to these accusations. I've worked here for 15 years. Sarah held up her hand to stop him. "Bob, we have photos of you hiring your nephew while rejecting qualified candidates. We have proof of you canceling interviews with no real reason. This isn't just about one job anymore. This is about the reputation of our entire company." Bob White's face turned even redder. "Tim is qualified. He has a degree." "A degree in history," Sarah said firmly. "While Mr. Lee here has 5 years of marketing experience and has won awards for his work. Bob, please wait outside. We'll discuss your situation later." After Bob left, Sarah turned back to Mike. The room was quiet except for the sound of the HR director typing quickly on her laptop. The morning sun made the whole office glow, and Mike could see people working at their desks through the glass walls. "Mr. Lee," Sarah said, sitting down again, "I'm going to be very honest with you. What you've shown us today isn't just unfair, it's against the law. Bob White has broken company rules and possibly state laws, too." She looked at the lawyer, who nodded. The HR director spoke up. "We've checked the other applications Bob rejected. There's a pattern going back at least 2 years. He's been turning away qualified people and hiring friends or family members instead." Sarah picked up one of Mike's documents. "You said you want to help make real change. What did you have in mind?" Mike pulled out one more paper from his folder, something he and Lisa had worked on late last night. "This is my suggestion," he said. "First, review all hiring in the past 2 years. Contact everyone who was unfairly rejected and give them a new interview. Second, create a new hiring team, not just one person making decisions. Third, start a training program to teach everyone about fair hiring." The lawyer looked impressed. "These are very reasonable requests," he said to Sarah. Sarah read through Mike's suggestions carefully. "You're not asking for money? Many people would sue us for a lot of money over this." Mike shook his head. "Money doesn't fix the real problem. I want to make sure nobody else has to go through what I did. And," he paused, gathering his courage, "I'd like to help lead the new training program. In fact, I have some ideas about how marketing companies can do better at reaching different communities." Sarah Chen smiled for the first time that morning. "Mr. Lee, that's actually perfect timing, because I'm not just going to offer you a job in marketing." She leaned forward. "I want to offer you 2 jobs. First, as our new senior marketing manager, the position you originally applied for, and second, as our first director of diversity and inclusion in marketing. We need someone who understands both sides of this problem." The HR director looked up from her laptop. "We've never had that position before." "Exactly," Sarah said. "And that's part of why we're in this mess today. It's time for big changes at Big Star Marketing. Mr. Lee, what do you say?" Mike felt his heart beating fast. 2 jobs? This was bigger than anything he had expected. He looked at the paper in front of him, thinking about all the people who had faced the same unfair treatment. "Can I have 1 day to think about it?" Mike asked. "I'd like to discuss this with my friend Lisa. She's helped me understand all the legal parts of this situation." Sarah nodded with respect. "Of course, take the day to think it over. But there's something else you should know. She pulled out a folder from her desk. This morning, when we found out what Bob White was doing, we started calling some of the other people he rejected. 10 of them already called back. They all had similar stories to yours. The HR director turned her laptop around. On the screen were photos of different people, young and old, from all kinds of backgrounds. These are just some of the qualified people Bob turned away, she said. One woman had 15 years of experience. A man had started his own successful marketing company. All rejected because they weren't a good fit. Mike looked at the faces on the screen. He thought about how each person must have felt, getting those rejection emails, thinking maybe they weren't good enough. Just then, his phone buzzed. It was a text from Tom in IT. Bob White just left the building with a box of his things. Security walked him out. Sarah saw Mike looking at his phone. Yes, we had to let Bob White go immediately. His nephew Tim will also be leaving. We can't keep people who abuse their power like this. She sighed. We have a lot of work to do to fix the damage they caused. Mike stood up. I'll give you my answer tomorrow morning, but first, I want to talk to some of those other people who were rejected. Maybe we can work together to make this company better. That's exactly the kind of thinking we need, Sarah smiled. Oh, and Mr. Lee, you might want to call your friend Lisa too. We'll need a good lawyer to help us review everything and make sure we're making changes the right way. Maybe she'd be interested in working with our legal team. As Mike walked out of the office, he saw Bob White's empty desk through the glass walls. The nameplate was already gone. His phone was full of messages from Lisa, asking how the meeting went. But instead of replying, he decided to walk to Jenny's coffee shop. This was the kind of news he wanted to share in person. He smiled as he thought about how different things had turned out. He came looking for one job, but might end up with two. More importantly, he had a chance to help change things for a lot of other people too. Sometimes, he realized, fighting for what's right leads to something much bigger than you ever imagined. At Jenny's coffee shop, Lisa jumped up from her usual table when she saw Mike walk in. Tell me everything, she said, pulling out a chair for him. Jenny herself brought over 2 cups of coffee. Curious about what had happened, Mike told them the whole story, about Sarah Chen's reaction, Bob White getting fired, and the surprising job offers. Lisa's eyes got wider and wider as he talked. 2 jobs? Lisa said, almost spilling her coffee. And they want my help too? Mike, this is amazing. This is exactly the kind of change we hoped for, but bigger. But that's not even the best part, Mike said. He pulled out his phone and showed them the emails he'd gotten on his way to the coffee shop. 5 of those other people who were rejected already wrote back to me. There's Maria, who has run her own marketing business for 6 years. James, who worked for big companies in New York. Sarah, who knows everything about social media marketing. They all want to help make things better. Lisa grabbed his arm excitedly. Mike, don't you see what's happening? You're not just getting a job. You're building a whole new team. A team of people who all know what it feels like to be treated unfairly, Mike nodded. Who better to help fix the problem? Just then, Mike's phone rang. It was Sarah Chen again. He put her on speaker so Lisa could hear too. Mr. Lee, Sarah said, I know I said take a day to think about it, but something big just happened. The company president saw our meeting notes and the evidence you brought. He wants to make our company a leader in fair hiring. He's giving us a budget to hire 20 new people in the next 3 months, and he wants you to help build the team. Mike looked at Lisa, who was giving him a big thumbs up. Ms. Chen, Mike said, I don't need a day to think about it. I accept both jobs, but I have some conditions. Go on, Sarah said. First, I want Lisa to be our legal advisor. She knows exactly what needs to change. Second, I want to interview all those qualified people who were rejected before. And third, I want to share our story with other companies. Maybe if they see how we're fixing things, they'll change too. There was a pause on the phone. Then Sarah said, Mr. Lee, this is exactly why we need you. When can you start? Mike looked at his watch and smiled. How about tomorrow morning? We have a lot of work to do. After hanging up, Jenny brought over 3 pieces of cake. This calls for a celebration, she said. Finally, someone brave enough to stand up and make real change. Mike looked around the coffee shop, remembering how just yesterday he had sat here feeling hopeless. Now, he was going to help change an entire company. His phone kept buzzing with messages from the other rejected applicants, all excited about the chance to make things right. You know what this means? Lisa said, grinning. Big Star Marketing is about to become Big Fair Marketing. 3 months later, Big Star Marketing looked completely different. Mike sat in his new office, looking through the glass walls at the busy workplace. Where there used to be rows of similar-looking people, now there were all kinds of faces. Maria was leading a team meeting in one corner, her marketing experience showing as she explained a new project. James was on the phone with a big client, using his New York connections to bring in new business. Tom from IT walked by with a big smile. "Hey, boss," he called out. Mike still wasn't used to being called that. "You won't believe the numbers I just ran. Our new campaigns are reaching twice as many customers as before. Turns out having different kinds of people on our team helps us talk to different kinds of customers." "Who knew?" He laughed. Sarah Chen appeared at Mike's door. "Ready for the big meeting?" she asked. "The other marketing companies are here to learn about our changes." Mike grabbed his presentation folder and walked with Sarah to the main conference room. The room was packed with managers from other companies, all wanting to know how Big Star had become so successful so quickly. "It's simple," Mike told them, standing at the front of the room. "We hired the best people, no matter what they looked like or who they knew. And guess what? When you give everyone a fair chance, you find amazing talent." He showed them the numbers. Customer satisfaction up by 40%, new clients increased by 35%, and employee happiness at an all-time high. The managers in the room wrote everything down, looking impressed. Lisa sat in the back of the room, smiling proudly. She was now the company's main lawyer, making sure everything stayed fair. She had helped write new hiring rules that other companies were starting to copy. "But the best part," Mike continued, "is that we're not done yet. Next month, we're starting a training program for college students. We're going to teach them about marketing and give them real work experience. And we're looking for students from all backgrounds, all colleges, not just the famous ones." A manager from another company raised his hand. "Wasn't this all very expensive, changing everything like this?" Mike shook his head. "Actually, we're making more money now than ever before. When you hire the best people and treat them fairly, they do amazing work. Our clients love that we understand different kinds of customers. It's not just the right thing to do, it's good business." Just then, Mike's phone buzzed. It was a message from Jenny at the coffee shop. "Turn on the news. They're talking about Big Star." Sarah quickly turned on the TV in the conference room. A news reporter was standing outside their building. "Big Star Marketing has become a model for other companies," she was saying. "After changing their hiring practices, they've shown that being fair isn't just about following the law. It's about being smart in business too." The managers in the room started applauding. Mike felt proud, but he knew this was just the beginning. He looked around at his team, Maria, James, Sarah, and all the others who had once been rejected, but were now helping lead the company to success. 1 year later, Mike sat in Jenny's coffee shop at his usual table. The place had become something of a lucky spot for him. Lisa sat across from him, just like that day when everything started. "Can you believe it's been a year?" Lisa asked, stirring her coffee. "Remember when you came in here all upset about the canceled interviews?" Mike laughed. "Feels like a different lifetime." "Hey, Jenny," he called out to the owner. "Come see this." Jenny walked over, wiping her hands on her apron. Mike showed her a magazine. Big Star Marketing was on the cover. The headline read, "How One Company's Change Led to a Business Revolution." "But here's the really good news," Mike said, flipping to the middle pages. 20 other companies in our city have copied our hiring program. Over 500 people who might have been rejected unfairly before got good jobs in the last year. Just then, a young woman walked into the coffee shop. She looked nervous, holding a folder just like Mike had held that day a year ago. She was heading to a job interview, they could tell. Mike walked over to her. "Excuse me," he said kindly. "Going to an interview?" The woman nodded. "Yes, but I'm worried. Sometimes people don't give me a fair chance because..." Her voice trailed off. Mike smiled. "Let me tell you a story about what happened to me right here in this coffee shop 1 year ago. And don't worry about your interview. It's a Big Star Marketing, isn't it? Trust me, they'll only look at your skills, nothing else." The woman's eyes lit up as she recognized him from the magazine cover. She sat down to listen to his story. Later that evening, Mike stood looking out his office window at the city lights. His phone buzzed. The young woman from the coffee shop had gotten the job. She wrote, "Thank you for sharing your story. You gave me courage." On his desk was a new sign that Sarah Chen had given him the morning. It read, "Change starts with one person brave enough to stand up." Next to it was a photo of his whole team. People of all backgrounds, ages, and experiences, all smiling together. Tom poked his head in. "Hey, Mike, you coming? The whole team's going to Jenny's to celebrate our best year ever." As Mike walked to the elevator with Tom, he saw the big sign in the lobby that had replaced the old Big Star marketing logo. Under the company name, it now read, "Where talent meets opportunity, everyone welcome." Outside, he could see his team waiting. Maria was telling jokes, James was taking selfies with everyone, and Lisa was probably already planning their next big change. Mike smiled, knowing that sometimes the worst moments in life can lead to the best changes, if you're brave enough to stand up for what's right. "Coming," he called out to his friends. After all, they had a lot to celebrate. They hadn't just changed a company, they had helped change the way people think. And that was worth all the cups of coffee in Jenny's shop,